Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, an out-of-control Karen started raging when I refused to let her hold my baby and then decided to steal the stroller and take my baby. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. When I had my beautiful baby girl, I was basically stuck in the house for the following 7 weeks. A long C-section recovery had me dying to get out of the house. I decided to go for a walk in a nearby park with my baby. I could not find a very comfortable way to keep her on me without the weight hurting my incision, so I chose to just push her in an infant stroller. My husband was at work anyway, and it was an amazing looking day outside. If I knew what I did now, I might have waited an extra day or two before venturing out. Now, Karen was not a stranger and she was known around the neighborhood. This person was big into those pyramid schemes, and when she would come around asking people to join, she seemed personally offended when we would tell her no. Like she was so entitled, she expected us to just hand over money because she said so. Her doing something petty would not be a far reach by any means. Sadly, she was at the park that day and felt the need to approach me. "Karen, do you need to be here disturbing everybody trying to enjoy the weather?" I had zero clue what she was talking about and just looked at her with that WTF face. I had no idea what I was possibly doing that could be offensive to her or anybody else though. "Karen, you came out here with that baby making noises and ruining the environment." "Me? But she has not cried once since we got here." "Karen, well, she is making sounds still. And you're just as bad with your noises." Me quietly singing to her? She expected the park to be silent for her? I was not singing loudly by any means, just a quiet little lullaby that nobody would hear unless they were right next to me. Karen could have moved slightly and it would be quiet, she just wanted to cause problems though. I don't deal with these types of people and their crap and choose to just ignore them. That changed when Karen decided to fix the problem on her own and demanded to hold my baby to shut her up. I was very protective and nobody but me and my husband were holding the baby yet. If I was not letting close friends or family hold her, there was no way Karen was getting her dirty hands on my daughter. I did not think to hold the stroller tighter, but I wish I had, because the next thing I knew, she had pushed me aside and started to run down the path with my baby. I sprinted after her as fast as I could while screaming for help. "Me, stop her! She just stole my baby! Please somebody stop her!" I'm lucky that the people here are friendly and got involved. Others were now chasing after her too, and much faster than I was. One guy on a bike heard my screaming and just took off to cut Karen off and slow her down. It was enough for me to catch up, and when I did, I was not gentle at all. I full-on tackled her to the ground. Karen meanwhile is screaming now. "Karen, help! Assault! This baby is in danger with her! Violent mother!" Everybody saw what she had done though, and nobody was going to be on her side. The police came because somebody had called them for the kidnapping. Karen turned the entire thing around to me, assaulting her and wanting charges pressed against me for tackling her to the ground unprovoked. I was in pain and just wanted to go home where it was safe. Meanwhile, my baby had woken up and was crying, and I just wanted to feed her and relax. After a lot of talking and arguing, I was allowed to go home, but Karen did move forward with her assault charge against me, so she ended up suing me. I don't know how she got a lawyer to take that case, but my guess was that he did not know the entire truth of the situation. I got a lawyer as well, who after hearing everything told me that if I told the truth I should not end up getting into too much trouble. We went to court and Karen started talking about how she was just walking through the park when she noticed me being crazy. That I was putting the baby in serious danger and she needed to take her away for protection. Then I supposedly attacked her out of nowhere, but I had several witnesses at the park stating that Karen was the one who started the entire thing, and the only yelling I did was to alert people that my baby was stolen and get help. One guy even had video on his phone of part of the incident, which the other lawyer tried to get thrown out as being only a partial telling of the story. I got asked point blank if I tackled Karen to the ground. I told the judge that yes, I did it in order to get my baby back, having the same story as the witnesses while Karen had nobody on her side. Meanwhile, her lawyer was trying to pull some miracle by saying it should not matter why I assaulted Karen, just that I did it. The judge said that he would not find somebody guilty of assault in a case of a mom trying to keep their children safe, that it was defense and every mom would have that type of reaction. As for me being a danger to the baby, Karen was trying to claim that I had postpartum depression, which has a small percentage of women trying to harm their child. I did not have postpartum depression though, and I had doctor's testimony to back that up. I was going for my wellness checks, and that is something they keep an eye out for nowadays. What gets really interesting is that my lawyer managed to dig up that Karen was the one with a history of mental illness. I cannot remember what it was called exactly, but it made her an unreliable witness to the events. She was now being seen as the unstable one and had nothing left of an argument to get me thrown in jail. The judge found that I was not guilty of assault and told Karen that she was very lucky. She could have faced seriously charges of kidnapping, child endangerment, and possibly even child abuse. I felt that having to stay in the neighborhood was a worse punishment for Karen than just being sent to prison on those charges. Everybody knew what she had done, and the small reputation she had was now totally ruined. Nobody wanted to speak to Karen and instead spit on the ground when she would pass by, calling her a baby thief and just a constant barrage of hate. I personally saw that her car had been hacked at least twice by people. She was a complete social outcast, and for somebody with the ego and entitlement of Karen, that was worse than prison. With this, there was no end date, and even if she moved, people could look her up and find out exactly what happened. The next one is a petty revenge story. So I have a dear friend, Shannon, fake name, in her early 60s, and as a toddler, her parents divorced and dad remarried a petty woman, Cruella, who wanted him to cut ties with Shannon. They still managed a relationship, but not as close as it should have been during her years growing up. Shannon married young and struggled a lot, but raised her 3 girls into young women who all now have families of their own, and Shannon is now a proud grandma and great-grandma. But back to Cruella. When Shannon was still in her 20s and had left her first husband, a cheater and criminal for her own sanity and the safety of her and her daughters, her dad had told her to come home and he would help her with a place to stay. Upon arrival, Cruella, she controlled finances, said that she was unwelcome and on her own. Shannon figured it out, and again the girls grew up healthy and loved, and Shannon remarried a loving man, but for 30 years she was never allowed to visit her father for Christmas or holidays or birthdays. Cruella died this year. Shannon was invited for Christmas and her father surprised her by letting her know that he was paying off her mortgage. It could never make up for not being there when she was younger, but it could give her some comfort now that she is retired. However, when they went to the bank today, she learned where the money came from. It is Cruella's life insurance payout. Cruella would roll over in grave if she knew that her life insurance went to pay off the house of the stepdaughter she wanted to deny existed for nearly her whole life. And the next one is a malicious compliance story. And if you have watched until here and enjoy my daily content, then please don't forget to like the video and maybe even post a comment, since that would help me tremendously in regards to defeating the stupid YouTube algorithm. When I was younger, around a decade ago, I used to love 2 things, cars and roads. And still to this day, I love cars, but the way I loved roads was through maps. My favorite activity when I was bored was to go on the Maps app and look at the highways that surrounded my area. My oldest sister at the time was the only sibling of mine who had a license. One summer day, she was bored and decided to take me and her boyfriend to an amusement park an hour and a half away from home. The story begins on the way back. My father needed the car at the dealership as it was scheduled to have routine maintenance done the next morning. My father sent her the address of the dealership and requested that she drop the car off and he will go and pick us up at the dealer. Now that the context is out of the way, here is where my sister made a mistake. She typed in the address and clicked on the nearest place with that road. The issue is that the nearest place with that road was a town going an hour in the opposite direction. She gets onto a road I will call State Route 100. This intersects with Interstate 1, which we were supposed to get onto. When she passes the highway, this following interaction ensues. Me, you were supposed to make that right. Her, that's not what the map says. 5 minutes later I say again, me, we are heading in the wrong direction. This doesn't go home. Her, maybe it's an alternate route that's faster. Me, I don't think a road going in the opposite direction is faster. She cut me off. Her, now annoyed, listen, I'm gonna focus on what the map says, not on you. Just stop already. And with that, I followed her instruction. After all, why would I complain on going on a road I've never been on? From what I remember after that, we stopped for gas about half an hour in. My sister was still convinced that we were going in the right direction, but why should I correct her? She is listening to the map after all. The fallout, we hit an expressway and my sister is convinced we made it home and is pleased with herself. This was until an overhead sign said, Town B Regional Airport 1 mile. At this point, my sister realized her mistake. She starts freaking out saying, I didn't know this road went here. I was following the map. OP, why didn't you tell me we were going the wrong way? I was scared of her getting mad at me, so I just said, after you told me to stop, I just stopped paying attention to where you were going. She eventually pulled into a gas station and saw where she set her GPS to. After correcting her mistake, we headed the opposite direction, although the car ride was rather silent. We eventually see signs for the amusement park we started at because she had to turn left at the road I originally told her to turn at. And that is how I turned a drive supposed to be an hour and a half into a 3.5 hour journey. Years have passed since this happened and I told my father, who thought it was hysterical. I often consider telling my sister, but we sadly rarely speak anymore. Thank you for reading, have a happy new year. And the next one is an Am I the A-hole story. So I, 28 female, single, don't have kids and I live alone. I also don't work overtime or do anything beyond my work, also I'm not in the US. First let me explain what my work is like. So we are an internal auditing company, I work in the logistics auditing division. What that means is that when a company hires us, mostly to see how good their policies are, we shadow their workers to see where efficiency can be increased. Sometimes that means working night shift, delivery, warehouse, manufacturing, etc. We are very lucky that we have an awesome manager and team leader. Once we divide the tasks, you can do them whenever, as long as your report is handed in when it should be. Work from home, from the office at 3 AM, less than 40 hours, it doesn't matter. For the 6 years I've been on this team, another female coworker in her 30s has been doing her absolute best to work the least amount possible. First, she is either always pregnant and not able to shadow anyone but the office workers, or she is on maternity leave for months and on her yearly vacation a month, or conveniently sick when it's time for some heavy-duty work. She sends in a doctor's notice and we have unlimited PTO as long as you have a doctor's notice. And when she is in the office, she is dumping her work on others. She uses her kids as an excuse all the time. Well, usually the other team members pick up her slack. I refuse to do so though. This time we are auditing a larger company, so all hands on deck. And for the first time ever, she is neither pregnant nor on maternity leave and she just got back from her yearly leave. The company we are auditing is in another city, so the members who will have to go will be staying there for 3 weeks. This time it's my turn to stay in the office, well, my home to be honest, and to do data organization/analysis. She asked me to switch with her and apparently she cannot leave her 5 kids alone with her husband. I said no, and then she tried to guilt trip me by saying that she would have to pay for childcare, which is more than what she would get paid for the whole month, and that I don't have any responsibilities like her. I told her, well, they're not my kids, so I don't see how that's my problem. Now she is pouting like a kid and some coworkers are saying that I don't know how hardworking moms have it, that I should be more compassionate. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? And yeah, ripe stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this one. Do you think OP is really the a-hole or not? Comment number 1 said, not the a-hole, don't back down, I used to work with a woman like this who would also try and get us to submit when we planned to take leave, just so she could see that she and her kids didn't want to take a trip during that time period. She was not a supervisor by the way, and she treated anyone without children as if they had something wrong with them. My point being is everybody is in different circumstances and people like her are given an inch and then take a mile, as the saying goes. Don't back down, and if she cannot accept that she also needs to do her fair share of the work and traveling if required, then she will need to accept that she needs to find another job. Best of luck. My problem ended up being made redundant after she got offside with everyone. Comment number 2, not the a-hole. It sounds like travel is an essential part of your job. If traveling is such a hardship for her with her kids, then she needs to find another job. Since that means she cannot meet the basic needs of her position. You didn't make the decision to have 5 children, nor did you make the decision to have a husband who cannot live up to the responsibility of a parent. Being single and childless myself, I'm tired of people like us being treated like our time and our lives are less valuable because we don't have kids. You should not have to shoulder extra work because another worker's home life. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. This happened last year. I just sold my home in my HOA. About 5 years ago, I bought a 1,500 square foot townhome condo in an up-and-coming town, right in the downtown area. This is a valuable property with home prices having increased 35% since I purchased. This was indeed a wonderful area in walking distance of everything I loved as a single bachelor. When I moved in, all my neighbors were wonderful, we all got along great except for one person. She belonged to the HOA board but was moving on because you can only serve 8 years. We will call her Jimpy J. Jimpy J is a 65-plus-year-old widow whose husband died unexpectedly from a heart attack. She does not have much to do in life. She met a man online and moved on, and I was happy for her. Talking to my passive neighbors, I hear bits and pieces of why things are at the HOA the way they are because of Jimpy J and another woman who had to move because of age. On the board, the two of them bully residents. They changed the landscaping from mulch to pine needles, and they stopped the upkeep on the pool deck because they hate kids. They reported one house for anything and everything because their kids were too loud. She bullied a woman with MS because Jimpy J was feeding feral cats and attracting raccoons and possums near our homes, and animal control was called. Residents did not like her. I then got married and my wife has been living with me for 2+ years now at this point. We are very happy. During this time, Jimpy J began spending more and more time with her new boyfriend. He lives about an hour away from our house in the country. She would initially spend the weekend and then a week there until she began living there all the time with very little time spent here. Maybe 15 minutes to 2 hours a month would be at our complex. Now, at our complex there's only one rule on parking. Each resident is entitled to 2 spots close to their building, but not necessarily in front of your unit, and there's no limit to parking spots you may occupy. Close to it is the keyword. We got new folks on the board who are all under 40 years of age, and the place is starting to get spruced up. We have some friends over regularly and they park in front of our unit. Jimpy J had 2 hip replacements done and we had not seen her in about 7 months. In our little area of the complex, it consists of 8 townhomes that face each other, 4 on one side and 4 on the other. There are 8 spots for 3 homes and a handicapped spot for one of our neighbors. Jimpy J started coming back around in January for longer periods of time. A day in the weekend to go out downtown or to visit friends. She started complaining that we were in her spots. Again, there are no assigned spots. We were willing to move our friends' vehicles for her to another empty spot, that is until she started occupying 2 spots at a time with her vehicle. This behavior continued as she would come in taking 2 spots anytime she was there. The rules in the master deed says no vehicle can take more than 1 spot without written permission from the board of directors or property management group, and cannot continue for more than 2 days with permission. This was to account for residents moving in and out. Suddenly, though, that spring, my wife had a medical issue and was hospitalized for 4 days and on disability for 8 weeks. My mom was the only family member on both sides that had the capability of coming down to where we lived to help us out. She drove down and we needed to occupy 3 spots. I promptly let our property management company know about what was happening, providing them with my mom's make, model and plate number, and that she would be here 6 to 8 weeks just in case anyone had an issue. Jimpy J's first time home in 6 weeks, we had a car in front of her house, but she had room for her vehicle. Of course, she marched over and banged, and I mean it was loud, on the door, demanding that we move the car, and tried to open my front door and walk in my home. And yes, she tried to enter my home. It shook my dog, who peed herself, it was that loud, who in turn growled and chased her out. I promptly told her that there was no assigned parking and the rule is 1 car, 1 spot. We would move a car out of respect one last time and saw she occupied 2 spots with it per usual. The next time it happened 2 weeks later, we refused to move our vehicle. We also began taking pictures for our records and communicating with our HOA of Jimpy J's erratic behavior. She continued to arrive, bang on our door, scream at us for having a car parked in her spot. One time banging on the door, she dented the frame with her keys. A few additional times when we are not home, she would come in and park occupying 2 spots. I would take more pictures for my records in case something happened because of her erratic behavior. And finally, it happened. About this time last year, I was at the gym and I get a call from my mom and my wife, frantic that someone is gonna tow my wife's car. I of course drive home as fast as I can, and it is Jimpy J's boyfriend's son and his girlfriend, who we have never met. This jackass, who does not even live here and has no business being here, is screaming at us and insulting my pregnant wife and mother. My mother-in-law pays XXX dollars a month for these spots. You guys are breaking the rules. I'm gonna tow their SUV, all while drinking beer. Now, we know he cannot do anything except scream and try to intimidate us outside. He then calls his mother-in-law, who is not married to his father, about the situation. Jimpy J drives an hour to our complex. When she gets here, she parks her car behind all 3 of ours and gets out, blocking us in, and I had enough. I quickly snapped some pictures. I also called the police. I will not feel unsafe or be harassed in my neighborhood by people who don't live there or are barely there. Jimpy J quickly realizes I called the police and moves her car. I print out all my documentation, pictures and communication from the HOA. I shower quickly because I'm disgusted from the gym and throw on a nice polo shirt and shorts. Pregnant wife sits in her rocking chair and my mother sits calmly at the kitchen table. The police arrive and we can see them hollering, waving arms widely and screaming. The police come to the door and we kindly open up. Jimpy J tries to walk in before I block her and ask her to leave my property and invite the police officers inside. We apologized that we even have to call them over something so petty, but our neighbor is acting crazy and her behavior has been escalating. We explain what's happening, show them communication from the HOA, show them pictures, and the officer quickly had enough of these pieces of crap. He imposes a no trespass order on my porch and will not let her near my property. If she steps foot on our walkway, she's in violation of the order and she will be arrested. We watch him go back out and explain calmly to her, and she starts screaming along with her boyfriend's kid and his girlfriend. This goes on for a while and the officer calls for backup and a second car arrives promptly. Jimpy J promptly declares it is her property too, she pays her fees and that he cannot do that because everything is community property outside of her home. She goes and marches up to my stoop and he arrests her. Charges her with disorderly conduct and harassment. The police then tell Jimpy J's boyfriend's son to go home. He promptly gets in his truck with his girlfriend and they drive off. As soon as he hits the road outside of our complex, the second officer pulls him over for DUI. That's right, the drunk guy screaming at my wife and mother had been drinking the entire time and was loaded. Police could not do anything in the complex but could when he hit the main road. Both of them were hauled off to jail and we stopped hearing from them about parking. 2 days later, Jimpy J and her boyfriend show up to the complex and they park her boyfriend's car in our lot and leave it parked in one spot to ensure it is hers. Well, they drive off and we don't hear from them in a week and no one is home. Since Jimpy J's boyfriend does not live here and his car is abandoned, I called the HOA to report it. They came and towed his SUV. Jimpy J put her house on the market 8 weeks later. F HOAs. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.